I will share with you the report. From Deerfield Beach, Florida, conservative radio host Joyce Kaufman will broadcast from the Allen West campaign headquarters in Deerfield Beach, where supporters will watch the swearing-in of the 112th Congress. Kaufman was supposed to attend the ceremony as Representative Allen West's top aide, but she resigned shortly after being hired on the same day that schools in Broward County were shut down after Kaufman received an email threat. The creator of that email praised Kaufman. Kaufman reportedly withdrew in order to spare the freshman congressman a distracting controversy. She grabbed headlines for making statements referring to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi as garbage, calling for illegal immigrants to be hanged, and saying that if ballots don't work, bullets will. Now, anybody who listens to my show knows exactly what those comments were taken from. In case other members of the media have not studied the Federalist Papers and all of the writings of our founding fathers, I didn't make up "if ballots don't work, bullets will." Thomas Jefferson made that up. And when I quote Thomas Jefferson, I don't expect to be chastised for doing it and taken out of context. And of course, that was a speech that was delivered at a 4th of July Tea Party rally, and the subject upon which I was asked to speak was the Second Amendment. And so I talked, and a member of the audience asked the question, what happens if they declare martial law and we don't have elections? Now, people have been asking me this when George Bush was president, when Bill Clinton was president, and certainly when Barack Obama was president. What happens in a nation, in a republic, if one day, and it's not inconceivable. I mean, you could have civil unrest, you could have a national emergency. There are many reasons that the administration would be empowered to declare martial law and cancel elections. Of course, the public would probably pretty quickly figure out whether they were justifiable or not. And that was the point at which the Founding Fathers decided that you had to have a method or a means to overcome tyranny. And those were the words that they used. So when I spoke about tyrannical governments, I was never referring to President Obama's government. It's just incompetent. It's not necessarily tyrannical. George Bush ran an incompetent administration. Bill Clinton actually ran, probably of the three, the most competent administration, whether I politically agreed with him or not. He was the consummate politician, and he was also a very, his critical thinking skills were far greater than either President George Bush's or, so far, President Barack Obama's. But hey, my president today received the Nobel Prize based on what he's going to do. So it's a whole new world, you know. Never before has the Nobel Prize been awarded to someone who has had absolutely no impact on world peace or national peace or any other kind of peace. But that's okay, because we're a proud nation, so we stand behind our president. If he wins awards and he gets lots of money and he donates it to good causes, I'm right there, you know. And I suspect that a lot of these awards are given more as a pat on the back to individuals nowadays than they are to have any meaning. I mean, let's not forget that that was the same award that was given to Yasser Arafat. So, you know, it's kind of diminished in its value since then. As far as me making headlines for statements referring to the House Speaker as garbage, the context of that statement was clear, and I stand by it. There were things going on in Congress for the last 2 years that were horrific. There were statements made for the Speaker of the House to tell the American people that first we'll pass the bill and then we'll tell you what's in it is garbage. It's not, it's not kind of a mistake. It's not, oh, she misspoke. It's treating the American people as though they have no value and have no impact on the decisions that are made in Washington. And there was nothing I wanted more than to see that gavel taken out of her hands. And we were sitting in this very office the first time I heard that expression. And it didn't come from me. It came from Congressman-elect Allen West, who said that what he wanted in a victory was to see that gavel removed from Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi's hand. And we are about to see that today. And I stand by that statement that if you behave in a manner that's disrespectful to the American people, you're relegated to the garbage heap of history. And if you're in the garbage heap of history, that probably makes you garbage. So I stand by that statement. I also remember quite clearly the speech that they played the clip from regarding illegal immigrants. It was made on a day when I had just received a phone call from Monica Ramos, who is the wife of one of the 2 Border Patrol agents who were charged with crimes and incarcerated in general population for doing their job. And what they had done was they had wounded a coyote who had been smuggling human beings and drugs across the southern border of the United States. And the state attorney decided that he was going to grant that criminal immunity and drop the charges against him if he would testify against the Border Patrol agents. So in my analysis of that event, I said that in my opinion, when someone is proactively trying to destroy my country, whether it's by allowing human beings to come into this country who are undocumented and therefore untraceable, and may be or may not be criminals, may be or may not be Hispanic, may be or may not be anxious to live in the land of the free and the home of the brave, it's an illegal act. And to bring drugs in that are killing my children, that are destroying communities throughout America, to me, those are pretty hardcore crimes. And all I said was that if someone commits a capital offense, that I believe they should be hung in the public square, returned to their native country, and we should be reimbursed for our troubles. I stand by that statement. I do. I don't believe that this country has an obligation to keep a border open. No other country on earth, including Mexico, has an open border policy. No other country on earth has a policy of automatic citizenship for any child born on this soil. We are the only country who does that. Now, we are the greatest nation on earth, but we will not remain the greatest nation on earth. I just came back, as everybody knows, from a trip to California where I got to see the prodigal son and the prodigal daughter. And it was a very interesting trip, but I will tell you, my biggest fears about what might happen to my country if we don't secure its border are so clearly evident in the state of Califailure. This is a state that has 2 completely different persons. There is the elite, well-to-do, academic liberals who pretty much, they just elected Jerry Brown. I mean, I don't even know what to say about that. He's a governor of California again. I mean, I wish he had instead, if he wanted to do something from the past, he should have dated Linda Ronstadt. But the idea that he's the governor again after all he's done is pretty outrageous. Nonetheless, there's no question in my mind that California is an example of what can happen to this country if we're not careful. There are 2 different economies, and both of them are failing right now. They cannot afford to keep police departments open in cities throughout Southern California. Now, the well-to-do do quite well. I mean, you can run around some of these very moneyed districts in Southern California, and they're fairly untouched. Well, I guess when I say untouched, they do get their lawns and their children minded by illegal immigrants, but they have a very separate life from what's happening in Central California, for instance, where the illegal immigrant population is larger than the native Californian or the Native American population, and it really doesn't look much like America anymore. And the farmers are not doing well. In spite of this so-called cheap labor, the farmers are losing their farms. The farmers are unable to compete with the products that we're bringing in from foreign countries to replace the produce that we've always grown in the United States of America. If it were not for the wine industry, which has a resurgence in California, the farms are in terrible. My son just became engaged to a young lady whose father actually owns a grove and a vineyard in California. And he was a big champion of the rights of illegal immigrants. He had worked alongside of Cesar Chavez, and he is as far to the left a human being as I've ever had to endure dinner with twice in 1 week. But by the end of those 2 dinners, he was He was almost completely converted because his life has been so negatively impacted. And yes, he did it for all the right reasons. And my heart is right there with him. I believe that all human beings they have the same rights that I have, that the Creator has given us, these inalienable rights. But the fact that they live in countries that they refuse to take control of and wrest away from tyrannical leadership is not my fault. And while I'm sympathetic, I can't be expected to answer every cry for help. And as it stands, there's only one country that accepts more immigrants legally into it than the United States of America per capita, and that's Israel. And of course, who are the two most targeted nations in the United Nations? Oh yeah, Israel and America. No coincidence there. So we do have the most humanitarian policies when it comes to immigration. And for me to have to be embarrassed by a statement that I think capital crimes committed by illegal aliens should be punishable the same way they're punishable in this country to an American citizen, you know, if you commit a capital crime in most states in the Union, you are eligible for a death sentence. You know, and that's what I said. And for anybody out there to have, you know, just twisted it up and made it look like I want to hang all illegal immigrants is bizarre. We're all immigrants of one form or another. My parents came over here, and my grandparents came over here legally. They had to have a sponsor. They had to register. United States wanted to know where they were, what they were doing, and refused to give them any financial aid until they had become American citizens. What happened to that America? Certainly, there was no greater need than in the 20s and again in the 40s for immigration into this country. And yes, this country was built on the backs of immigrants. However, they signed the guest book when they came in, and that's relevant. If we don't maintain our personality, if we don't maintain our culture, we are doomed the way every other empire, which has given up its cultural identity, to a terrible fate. I don't know about the rest of you, but if I wanted to live in a third world country, it'd be a lot more affordable. Why should I live in a third world country at this level of taxation? We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we are live broadcasting from the headquarters of Congressman-elect Allen West.